Welcome back. You're watching The Fix with me, Karima Brown. I'm in conversation with Professor Adam Habib. Professor Habib, the president announced his economic recovery plan. It looks as if both the official opposition and other smaller opposition parties, as well as the president's allies in the tripartite alliance, are unhappy with the lack of specifics, to lack of a way to explain the way in which this plan is going to be implemented, never mind whether we agree on what that plan is. What kind of space does the president have to maneuver on economic policy, but more importantly, to just actually practically implement, stuff? I mean, the president, for example, inaugurated another council on state-owned enterprises, chaired by Jewel Netshitenze, a kind of old ANC hand. But I mean, this is, for example, I lose track with how many committees have been set up to look at state-owned companies. State-owned companies essentially has been looted not just by the Jacob Zuma administration, but from the time of the New Democratic Order to funnel money to the African National Congress. Can state-owned companies actually be sorted out by the African National Congress?
Well, you're going to have to create some degree of relative autonomy for those states. I mean, think about it. We don't have a state-owned enterprise, but I run a public university, and that has 10 billion worth of turnover that goes through it every year. And I can guarantee you that the ANC wouldn't imagine coming anywhere close to Wits and trying to muscle us for resources. And that's because we've got a very firm leadership and we've got a very firm council that will stare them down. And it seems to me that that's what we need to do, is spend an enormous amount of attention on how you create a relative autonomy, get board members that are capable of staring down malevolent political actors. But I wanted to come back to your real question, which is on economic policy. And I think you got two problems there. The first is he's got to craft an economic policy that demonstrates to people that actually not only is it's about inclusion, not only is it about growth, but it's also going to act against rich people as much as it's going to demand sacrifices for a war. Now, for me, the big issue about taxes, wealth tax, is not so how much they generate, but it is about the political messaging that goes with it. I think income restraint on rich CEOs for 3 years is a sellable thing in South Africa. And I think corporate South Africa will accept it if you sell it well. But it's important for the political messaging. And Cyril Ramaphosa just doesn't have the appetite. And that's what he's got to shift towards, is winning the appetite. And I think it's a winnable thing in exchange for certainty. Because, for instance, you can't get investment without certainty. And that still uncertainty emerged again in the mining industry with how Gwede Mantashe reacted to Sibania's response on BEE requirement. So I do think you need certainty, but in exchange for that certainty, you can get wealth tax, you can get income restraint that sends a political message. The second is you can't do it with state capacity. The existing state capacity is severely constrained. You're seeing it time and time again in the state capture hearings. You're seeing it around the people around Cyril Ramaphosa, which is why every time he's got a problem, he's setting up a new council with new people. Yeah. He should have the people around him capable of actually being able to deal with this multitude of issues.
Adam, I don't want to depress the viewers of The Fix even further, but if you think the African National Congress has capacity problems and a lack of ideas, I mean, the political opposition, both to the right and the left of the African National Congress, hardly inspires confidence. Let's start with the Democratic Alliance. It elected John Steenhuisen a week or so ago, unsurprisingly. Does he have what it takes? Is the DA even conceptually and organizationally set up to put itself forward as an alternative in terms of real governance beyond the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape as a province to govern South Africa?
So I don't think so, and I think it's a conceptual problem. Because whatever they might say in the inner conversations, the DA comes up as a colorblind party. Now, I'm very worried about upper middle class blacks monopolizing the benefits of the transition, and not taking class as an important component. But that doesn't mean you must be colorblind. It doesn't mean you don't recognize that we live today with the consequences of past injustices, and that we've got to correct for that. The question is, how do you correct for it in a manner that reaches poor people and poor black people in particular? And that's what they've never been to articulate, because they completely retreat to an agenda that says colorblind, okay, we're now all equal, and therefore we don't have to deal with issues of injustice that come from our past. Now, that's how it's presented. That's how it's articulated. And they have not had the conceptual agility, the intellectual capacity, politically, to be able to deal and become a post-apartheid opposition party.
Now, let's go to
opposition party.
Adam, let's go quickly to the economic freedom fighters. They've positioned themselves to the left of the African National Congress and, of course, have quite a statist approach in terms of the economy. But in as much as the DA is race reductionist, or rather race denialist, the EFF is race reductionist and often uses the very real struggle against racism that is necessary in South Africa as a way to almost delegitimize voices and entire communities in South Africa. Is that organization capable of, A, dislodging the African National Congress, but also just imagining a South Africa that, A, is inclusive, that is more equal and more just at the end of the day?
So, I'm quite firm on my views on the EFF. I think, firstly, it's a nativist party. It's very much advances essentialist notions of identity. I think it's violent prone. It's got its similar problems of corruption. And frankly, its leadership is as incompetent as they come. Think about what the EFF is very good at breaking things down. It's never about good at building institutions and at creating an inclusive agenda. In a lot of ways, the EFF, in my mind, is fascist. It is the equivalent of Mobutu Sese Seko in the DRC or Idi Amin in Uganda in an earlier period. And I think we need to have courage to call it out, and the political analysts who don't have the courage do South Africa and do their craft a disservice by trying to placate, by trying to win over the EFF. It's the equivalent of people trying to say to Hitler in the 1920s, we can convert him to be a more reasonable individual. That's the kind of danger that South Africa's intellectuals and at least its political analysts are playing at when they don't call out the EFF for what it is, which is a fascist party. And that must be recognized by both the ANC and the DA. They both can't say it's fascist and then want to enter into an alliance with it. We need to do what the Germans did post-1995, is actually isolate it politically so that it can't move. And that's the best way to politically deal with somebody like the EFF.
All right, Adam, that is where we will leave it. Thank you so very much to Professor Adam Habib from Wits University. Still ahead, the implications of the US elections on global governance and trade. Stay with us.